What is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. There hasn't been really that much weather going on for the last few days, so when this started to come up, I knew I needed to cover it. Here's the situation we have going on so far. We have a potential tropical cyclone that is going to be impacting Australia in the next week or so, and we also have a tropical cyclone that is currently impacting India. Its current name is Mingchong. I'm sorry if I completely butchered that. I'm not used to these kind of names, but we have a lot of stuff to really talk about today. But first, we're going to go ahead and cover the situation that's going on off the coast of India, because this poses a pretty big threat, both flooding and wind-wise, as this has the chance to continue to strengthen and organize and develop as it is forecasted to remain in this part of the Bay of Bengal just off the coast of India for the next 48 hours. So here's the structure of it right here. The latest satellite imagery is showing a lot of heavy outer bands impacting a lot of India right here, especially in the southeastern part of India, as this thing continues to organize and develop just off the coast. And we have the latest for you right here. The current location is 12.9 degrees north, in 81.8 degrees east. Maximum sustained winds are now at 45 knots or 50 miles per hour. Minimum central pressure is 996 millibars at this current point in time. If we go ahead and show you the latest models that we have right here, the latest tracks that we have going on, a lot of the ensembles are forecasting this to continue to strengthen as it starts to make that turn to the north and then make landfall in this part of India over here. I'm not exactly 100% sure as of where that is directly right there, but we can go ahead and pull it up. Yeah, that's near. That's near Chennai over here, and near Vayawanda to the north right here. So if I completely butchered those names for those of you who are tuning in, I do apologize. I'm not used to Indian city names, so I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get there in a bit. But yeah, I do apologize if I completely butchered that, but that's besides the point. We are showing increasing ensemble runs of this thing getting down to the 980s millibar system. This already is, according to the scale that you guys have in India, a Category 1 tropical cyclone, and it is potentially going to get to a Category 2 cyclone as it starts to approach and make landfall. Potential winds we're looking at is around 75 to 80 miles per hour, about 70 to 75 knots. We'll have to pay attention to that as time continues to go on. But the main story we need to talk about is this potential situation going on in Australia. Here is Invest 92P. Right now, the system is off the coast and really impacting the Solomon Islands with a lot of rain, a lot of flooding at this current point in time. And if we go ahead and show you some more of the models that we have pulled up, we're starting to see an increasing amount of scenarios of this thing bringing some impacts to Australia. Whereas we continue to get more and more tracks and more models in, we're starting to see more and more ensembles of a potential threat and potential impact to Australia. So here's the situation we have at this current point in time. Current location is 8.2 degrees south and 160.2 degrees east. Maximum sustained winds are 25 knots or about 28 miles per hour as it approaches the Solomon Islands and brings impacts. It has been strengthening all last night and been strengthening this morning, so definitely something to pay attention to. If we go ahead and show you the track models that we have right here, pretty much all of the track models at this current point in time are now calling for a potential Australian impact in the next week or so, but not before intensifying at a very alarming rate, as according to the ensemble intensity runs that we have right here. A lot of these scenarios are getting down to the 950s millibar, with a couple even getting down to the 940s. So for that equivalent, that's equivalent to about a Category 3, Category 4 tropical cyclone for those of you who are down in Australia right here. So definitely a very serious situation that we need to continue to cover at this current point in time. This also isn't going to be moving that particularly fast. It's going to be moving at a rather slow pace as it moves after the Solomon Islands and then starts to slowly trudge down towards Australia, giving it plenty of time to organize, plenty of time to develop, and plenty of time to strengthen as it gets closer and closer and closer to the mainland Australia. So definitely something to pay attention to. If you are tuning in from Brisbane, if you are tuning in from Sydney, you guys absolutely should be monitoring this, and we will show you why in just a second right here. Before we're going to go ahead and now show you the models that we have pulled up right here. We're going to start with the European, then do the GFS, then the CMC, then the NavGem, and the Icon, and kind of go over all of those as well as the conditions that are going to be contributing to all of this. Here's the conditions that we have with the European. The European model is showing signs of organization and development just as it gets off the Solomon Islands, gets down to a 997 millibar tropical cyclone, and slowly makes its way down towards Australia from the Solomon Islands, and really starts to intensify, gets down to a mid-980s system by 102 hours out. Then by 5 days out, we're down to the 970s right here. We're down to 971 millibars, which is about equivalent to, I'd say, a Category 3 cyclone for those of you down in Australia. And then this thing starts to continue to strengthen, gets down to the 964 millibars as the peak before it starts to bear down into Australia, bringing a lot of impacts to a lot of the areas across the coast right here. Brisbane is the first to get impacted by the European, and a potential landfall spot near the metropolitan area is possible at a 986 millibar cyclone. So this is definitely something we need to pay attention to as time continues to progress. We also have to show you some other things right here. We're going to show you the shear as well as the moisture gradient, because the shear as of right now is extremely unfavorable for much of Australia at this current point in time. Their cyclone season is just starting, so that's rather understandable. However, as time continues to go on, and as this thing starts to organize and develop, the shear is going to gradually start to recede and allow this thing to maintain its intensity as it moves towards Australia, mainland Australia, towards Brisbane, potentially towards Sydney. Here's what we're looking at with the shear. Really, it's going to depend on what this trough does and how far to the south it's going to really maintain its course right there. If it pushes a bit further to the north, then we could see a stronger shear possibility, but then anticipated, in which could help it kind of stop its intensification before it gets too bad. However, at this current time, we're seeing from what I'm looking at, it looks like it's going to be staying further to the south and really allow this thing to really take advantage of the wind shear as it's further out and help enhance the outflow. You're probably asking me right now, Patrick, what you just said shear is bad for tropical systems, tropical cyclones. Why are you now saying shear is good? In certain circumstances, if the strong shear is far enough away from the center of circulation, then what happens is what it does to the outflow is basically it allows the outflow to really ramp up, and it really helps improve its circulation, as the shear that is way outside of the tropical cyclone center really starts to ramp up and really starts to improve its circulation. So definitely something to pay attention to, and the shear is forecasted to weaken quite a bit as it starts to approach Australia. However, the shear does start to come back, and it starts to impact some cooler sea surface temperatures before getting to Brisbane, which is why it's going to be primarily weakening, also increased shear as it approaches the Australian mainland. So that's definitely the big situation that we have going on. Now we're going to go ahead and show you the moisture forecast to see what kind of humidity we're working with. And the moisture is pretty mixed, to say at the very least. And there is going to be some dry air that could potentially slow down its intensification as it approaches Australia. However, where this thing starts to organize and develop off the Solomon Islands, by that point, it's already an established cyclone, so the outflow that it does produce definitely could start to combat and eat up a lot of that dry air and keep the moist air pocket as this thing continues to organize and develop. There may be some dry air intrusion later down the road that could stagnate its intensity. However, it's not going to do that much to the tropical cyclone as it approaches Australia, and then things start to get a bit hairy as time continues to go on. And dry air is, from what I'm looking at, like I said, not going to be that particularly big of an issue. It's mainly going to be the wind shear and sea surface temperatures that are really going to make or break this, especially this early in the cyclone season. So we'll definitely have to pay attention to it for you guys as time continues to go on. Now we're going to go ahead and show you the GFS model, and the GFS goes all out with this. The GFS is showing signs of organization and development very quickly after it gets off the Solomon Islands. Starting about 72 hours out, we're already down to a 988 millibar system, as it still brings impacts to the Solomons and starts to really head down towards Australia. And then it continues to intensify at a very alarming rate. We get down to, by 5 days out, according to the GFS, a 929 millibar system, which, if my calculations are correct, is the equivalent to a Category 5 cyclone. Keep in mind, this is a very unlikely scenario. In order for this to really happen, you need all the perfect conditions, and right now, from what I'm seeing from all the modeling, we're not really seeing that. It's too early for me to give an intensity estimate, but the tracks are all showing this at some point impacting Australia as a cyclone. Gets down to 926 millibars. Pretty scary stuff as it approaches Australia, but I guarantee you it's going to weaken before that, primarily due to the wind shear, due to the dry air that does get in there, and due to the lower sea surface temperatures as this thing starts to approach Australia. If we go ahead and show you these sea surface temperatures, they gradually cool down as they approach Brisbane, as they approach Sydney, from 28 Celsius to 26 to about 25 degrees Celsius around the Brisbane area, and then down to like 23, 22 around the area around Sydney. So if it's not the shear and not the dry air that's going to kill it off, it's definitely going to be the cool sea surface temperatures, but that does not mean Eastern Australia is safe, because we are still seeing a bunch of impacts anticipated at this current point in time, starting to really just hug the coast, starting near Brisbane, and then moving towards the Sydney area as a 979 millibar tropical cyclone, making landfall there as it's weakening off. But even if it does lose a lot of its wind characteristics, a lot of problems are still going to happen, because a lot of areas around Sydney, from what I've been told, very prone to tropical cyclones. And not only that, but that's also going to enhance the flood risk across all those areas right there. So definitely something to pay attention to as it approaches Sydney. And that's what we have going on with the GFS model at this current point in time. So if you're Jesse Grant, shout out to you, by the way, buddy. I would continue to watch this, especially since this is going to be such a huge storm that's going to be impacting a lot of areas around the coast of Australia. I would just monitor this as best as you can. I'll keep you guys updated, especially around the Brisbane and Sydney area, in case this thing continues to head further down to the south. But in the meantime, we have a lot of stuff to really talk about in the coming days, and we'll continue to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and close the video out right here. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. It helps us out, helps us make more videos like these. The goal of this channel is to get more people engaged with weather. Shout out to Jesse Grant once again. I know you're in Australia, so I would really recommend you keep an eye on this, and I'll keep you updated. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.